And so again, Shalom, Bet Ariel and friends of Bet Ariel, welcome to our Shabbat service where we are always striving to seek to discover more facets of our great and wonderful Lord. Now, before we get into our text of the Bible today, we have mentioned beforehand the degree to which the government of Israel has changed since the last election and how people have been demonstrating in the streets week after week. You know that today they are in their 22nd week of protest. So the problem is that now there's a minority religious body who holds the current government in check and who is using its influence to impose religious laws on this very tiny nation. And 2 weeks ago, the government passed a budget that even enlarges the big gulf between the religious and non-religious there, and this had infuriated many. For instance, you know that millions and millions of dollars have been allocated to the Haredi Jews, to the point they say it is more beneficial for a Haredi Jew not to work, but to rely actually on the government, so he can spend more time praying and studying. By the way, Haredi, this is how they call the religious people. It means in Hebrew, the God-fearer. Now, secular Jews complain that the funds are taken from those who participate in the workforce and given to a community of whom half of the men actually do not work. The leader of the opposition, Lapid, calls this a most destructive budget in the nation's history and an endless extortion. While the others, like Ben Gvir, if you remember the name, calls it a new dawn for Israel. However, this small and powerful religious group of people is convinced that their prayers are now sustaining the state of Israel, and through their studies and the time they spend studying and the deeds they do, they will usher the Messiah in. This is what they believe. They believe he will come very soon. And I want to tell you, they are very bold, and they are unconcerned with world opinion, for they are convinced that he's coming very soon. But I want to ask you a question. How does this concern us? What does it tell us? Bible prophecies demand that such group of people be in some sort of leadership over the country at the end times, just like it was in the first century. And just before the prophecies of the tribulation are to be unleashed, and just before the second coming. And this may very well be the beginning with what we're witnessing today in Israel. Among many other prophecies, two major ones are predicted for the state of Israel in the near future. First, that the third temple be built, for it has to be in function before the second coming. Yeshua mentioned that this temple will be up and running just before he returns. We will see this in the next chapter of Mark, our next chapter, when he speaks of the abomination of desolation as a sign for the people of Israel to leave actually the country. And he quotes Daniel, who mentions this twice. And Paul also mentions this abomination when he speaks of the man of lawlessness who takes his seat in the temple of God, displaying himself as God himself. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Second, we will need the presence of the false prophet, or the last false Jewish Messiah, and for him to be acclaimed and raised as John prophesied in Revelation 13. It is he who will lead the Jews to this Antichrist. And so such a body of religious authority must be in place before these things happen. Let us remember that the state of Israel was formed by non-religious people. At that time, do you know that only 3% of Israelis were Haredi? Today, the figure is 13%. However, 18% for the 18 years old and more, and that is and almost 25% for the newborns. So the face of Israel is about to change for the next years in order to adapt itself for the coming prophecies. Again, the changes occurring in Israel, which would be the political center of the world in the end time, and the place where the final world war will occur, that is in Armageddon, may very well be another harbinger that we are getting very close to the fulfillment of these prophecies.